Welcome to Morning Devotion with Ken Gurley. Devotions designed to inspire you on your daily walk with God. Here's your host, Ken Gurley.
Hey, good Wednesday morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for being a morning devotee. James, Lynn, happy you're here. Tessie, you're back. Whoa, did I just see Tessie come back there? Tessie has been, this is a momentous day. For 10 days, she has been in puppy dog jail. We don't know why. Last couple of days, she's been commenting under my profile. You have never seen Ken Gurley use so many emoticons in your entire life. But Tessie is back. We don't know what she did, what horrible thing, terrible thing she did, get thrown into puppy dog jail. But she is officially out. Mark it down, Wednesday, August 24. Tessie has been set free. Oh my. What a great subject today. Welcome to each and all of you this Wednesday morning. Thorns, their weight and their worth. I want to cause you to look at thorns in a different light today. Everyone listening to me, it's sort of a past, present, future. You have been through something, you are going through something, or you shall go through something. That is life. Man born of woman is full of trouble. Surely as the sparks fly upward, you're going to have thorns. So I think today will be beneficial for each and all of us. Thorns, their weight and their worth. Michael, good to see you. Sue, Donna, Margaret, happy that you are here. I said that so fast, Sue, Donna, Margaret. Those are three people. That's not one person's name. Those are three separate devotees, thorns. It was the promise of God to an earth gone astray. Way back in the garden, you may remember when the fall took place, God told Adam that the earth would yield thorns and thistles. Apparently, up until then, I don't know, everything was just green and growing. The earth was free from bloodshed. Weeds weren't there. No such thing as Roundup, the local hardware store. Everything just yielded to man's touch, but no more. Thorns were promised because of the fall of man. Thorns then become emblematic of sin itself. Thorns are found throughout Bible history, and at the close of the day, at this devotion, I want to share with you the most profound, the superlative use of thorns in the Bible. But for this devotion, if you would let me, I want to focus on those garden variety thorns of life, those issues we have that hurt and that hinder. We welcome you to morning devotion. As you know, or if we have some new folks out there, right out of the factory. Yeah, those new folks. Yes, they still have their labels that they won't rip, tear, and ravel around the scene. Yes, those new folks. We meet here Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Central, and we're happy you're part. Don't lurk. Don't be a lurker. Come out of the shadows. Identify yourself. Tell us more about you. Pray for one another. Encourage one another. That is the morning devotion family. I've always been intrigued with people's lives, especially those who walk those significant pages and times of history. And those people who are found in the Bible, ordinary folks just like me and you, but who did quite often extraordinary things through faith. The Apostle Paul, then, has always intrigued me. Here's a man, this guy wrote half the New Testament. Here's a man who brought the gospel to the Gentiles. He was our apostle. Yet, I don't meet many people who would say that Paul is my favorite Bible character. They like David. People like Noah and Moses. They love Deborah and Lydia, and they love all sorts of people, but I've just never really found somebody who is just head over heels fascinated by Paul. I was at a funeral recently and they sang that song, I bowed on my knees and cried holy. About the day we get to heaven, what a day that will be. And you remember that verse in the song, as I entered the gates of that city, my loved ones all knew me well. They took me down the streets of heaven. Such scenes were too many to tell. I saw Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. I've always wondered about why it's in that order. Why not Abraham? Anyway, I talked with Mark and Timothy, but I said I want to see Jesus because he's the one who died for me. And I think that's the way it is. We're going to want to see Jesus when we're up there. We want to see our loved ones. We want to see those who have gone before. But then the songwriter lists several people. I want to see Mark and Timothy, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Those kind of folks. Mark and Timothy, we self-identify with them in their weakness. Mark was the homesick guy. Timothy was timid. We see ourselves in these people. Old Jacob intrigues us, and Isaac too. But you're not going to see Paul mentioned in that song. We reverence Paul. We respect Paul, but we'd never give Paul our heart. In fact, I'm convinced after just being around this a long time, some people just dislike Paul because they don't understand him. I mean, have you ever picked up the book of Romans, Paul's first book in the New Testament, and immediately you're just lost, and you find a sentence that has 137 words, 11 commas, 2 colons, and 1 semicolon, and that's way too much punctuation for one sentence. We just get lost. Even Simon Peter said, I just get kind of lost in his writings. That's the Gurley translation of what Simon Peter said. Yes, we just think, I don't like this guy named Paul. Then we listen to the words that he uses. He uses words like foreordination, predestination, justification, sanctification, edification, damnation. I've always avoided those words that have T-I-O-N on the end of them. I shun the shun words. I mean, who can win your hearts using words like that? Maybe some of us have never forgotten or forgiven Paul for instigating the stoning of Stephen. Some women probably don't like Paul because they think he's a chauvinist, and if it hadn't been for Paul, there's a whole lot of verses about dress and behavior that wouldn't be in the Bible. Yeah. I guess Paul's not one of the guys we'd like to hang around with and shoot the bull at the water cooler or at the coffee pot. Now, we'd get a kick out of being with Simon Peter. Like Luke, apparently, we'd get a kick out of hanging out with Mary and Elizabeth and hearing the Christmas story in the first person. We know intuitively we'd be awed and overwhelmed to be in the presence of John, the beloved disciple, the revelator. But Paul, well, he probably has his own corner in heaven somewhere, and, and not very many people there around Paul. But then we read 2 Corinthians, and Cheryl, Janie, Lenora, Joanne, something changes. Something changes. The wall that separates us from Paul crumbles in 2 Corinthians. Most of what we know about the man is in that one letter. And we finally see in that letter what attracted so much pain and so much gain. And why Paul had these loyal, devoted co-workers and followers. Why he had sons in the faith. Why they stuck with him through thick and thin. Yeah, so 2 Corinthians is where we're going today. And I hope you're blessed. Ashley, good to see you. Great testimony. Ashley, in your life, Hope, Thomas, what a day. Here's the passage. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. I'm going to start it in verse 7. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of revelation, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. He said to me, oh, I love this. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, Paul said, I would rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Then that catch-all verse, therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. Thorns, their weight and their worth. I just feel very strongly. I feel very strongly today in this morning devotion. I just want to talk about the trials and triumphs of life, the messes and the yeses of life. That the thorn in your side may actually be on your side. That what you think is your greatest trial may be a triumph in disguise. I don't know how many of you are going through something right now, or you know someone who's going through something. I wish I could just speak a word of affirmation, hope, and faith to tell you that the greater the testing, the greater the testimony. Yes, that what's happening to you. Well, I just feel inspiration here today. What's happening to you cannot compare to the worth of what's happening in you. That thorn that pierced you, that hurt, that wound, if it's processed correctly, its weight is outweighed by its worth. Put it on the scales, and the worth becomes far greater. I feel that. I just feel like I need to share that with someone. So I don't know what trial you're going through right now. I don't know if it's physical. I don't know if it's social. I don't know if it's relational. I don't know if it's financial. But here's what I know. I don't know if someone has said something about you and has crushed you, if you've lost someone precious in your life, if a relationship is destroyed. Can I just say over time, I realize that relationships matter more than just about anything in life. I know, spend the energy. And I'm just thankful for this relationship we have here. It gives us a chance to just kind of talk to each other, encourage one another. So like, share, follow, subscribe, and let's dive into this. Paul spoke of his thorn in the flesh. Now we know Paul had a physical problem. Exactly what it was, we don't know. I've heard it said that Paul's thorn in the flesh was an eye problem, that when Paul was blinded on the Damascus road, that blinding affected him the rest of his life. Some of the substantiation for that is because Paul rarely ever wrote things himself, but dictated them in Scripture. Sometimes he'll say, I'm writing this in my own hand. In another instance, Paul didn't seem to recognize the high priest, a man he should have known. And or it's said of the Galatians that they would have freely given the Apostle Paul their eyes. A common expression of love, but to give someone your eyes. But maybe Paul had a vision problem. Others said he had leprosy, malaria, fits of depression, or the favorite disease to tag on famous people, epilepsy. Same label has been put on Julius Caesar, Muhammad, Cromwell, Napoleon. So why not Paul as well, I guess. His physical problem, we really can't say exactly what it was. Paul just described it in 2 Corinthians as a thorn in his flesh, a messenger of Satan, buffeting him, plaguing him, some chronic issue in his flesh. Not even Dr. Luke, who accompanied Paul, was permitted by the Spirit to explain Paul's issues. So we're left to only ponder it. Paul's thorn in the flesh. But from the glimpse in 2 Corinthians, that most intimate and personal letter of Paul, we begin to understand that thorns are weighty. They have their weight and their worth. Let's talk about the weight. So when God said, Adam, this ground that yielded so much fruit, now it's going to have thorns and thistles. He was speaking of life itself, that you're going to have troubles and tears in this life. They're inevitable. You're going to have problems. They're going to pierce you. They're going to hurt you. You don't have an exoskeleton like a crustacean. You have an endoskeleton, which means that you can be touched. You can be hurt. You can feel a thorn in your flesh. You're going to have times when things don't go your way. Paul had some of those times. I mean, let's see, what was it? 3 times beaten with 39 stripes, 5 times beaten with rods. He was stoned, 3 times shipwrecked. He spent hours in the deep. He had perils in the water. Robbers, countrymen, heathen, perils in the city, perils in the wilderness, perils in the sea, perils of false brethren. He described it, his weariness, his painfulness, his hunger and thirst, and then the sum total, the daily care of all the churches. Yes. The trouble with trouble, let me just tell you, Tiffany, Jose, Bobby, the trouble with trouble is that trouble never comes alone. It always sort of brings 7 spirits worse than itself. I think there's a cube in life, 4 corners to this cube: family, job, health, and church. If you have a problem in one of those 4 areas, no problem. The cube can rest. It's got 3 good corners. But if you start having a problem in more than one area, you tend to feel overwhelmed and destabilized, and you have struggles and troubles. It was like Jonathan and his armor bearer facing the enemy. They had to go climb uphill to fight, and they had to go through 2 huge sharp rocks called Bozez and Zena. And then they faced an enemy more numerous, better armed, between a rock and a hard place, uphill climb against gigantic odds. That's the trouble with trouble, is it comes in bunches. Thorns. You see this, the thorns on the branch behind me. How many times you've gone to pick blackberries and been faced with that? But it's in the midst of thorns that you find the fruit. Yes. It's the way trouble comes. It comes in plurality, not in singularity. Your attitude toward the thorns are so important. You notice that when the problem appeared, Paul didn't roll over and play dead. He didn't say, nothing good ever happens to me. Nobody likes me. Everything goes bad in my life. No, that's the kind of person that's easily defeated by life itself. They will live amongst the thorns. They will hide in the hedges. No. Paul carried his thorn to God 3 times. He said, 3 times, God, I asked you to take this thorn from me. 3 times. He consecrated himself before God. If these things go out, not out but by prayer and fasting, I'm sure Paul prayed and fasted about it. Once, nothing happened. Twice, he went to God, nothing happened. 3 times, nothing happened. He must have wondered, am I going to have to do this 7 times like Naaman dipping in Jordan before I'm loose from this thing? But finally, Paul got an answer. After he'd prayed 3 times, saying, get this thorn out of my flesh. The Lord answered Paul's prayer. He said, Paul, I'm going to give you great treasures. I'm going to give you great revelations. I'm going to use you mightily. You're a chosen vessel for me. Paul, it's my spirit that moves your pen and causes you to write. Paul, your flesh is weak. You could get puffed up. You could get exalted above measure through the abundance of revelation I'm giving to you. It's one of the few. Boy, I feel this. Rod and Jackie, William, I just feel this. Man, I feel this. I challenge you to look outside the Gospels for those red letter occasions. Oh, I know the red letters were not in the original edition. They were put in there a few hundred years ago. just to help us know what the words of Jesus were. But this is one of the words of Jesus outside of the four Gospels. One of the rare occasions that you're going to read letters in red outside of the Gospel. Here's one of those red letter occasions when Jesus said in 2 Corinthians, Paul, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Paul, the thorn that is in your side is really on your side. It's working something in you. It has worth. Don't try to get rid of the weight of the thorn, because then you remove the worth of the thorn. Don't try to clip the thorns, because then you remove its fruit. And Paul responded, okay, Lord, if that's the way it is, most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest on me. That's the worth of thorns. That's the worth of thorns. God uses thorns to accomplish his greater purpose. Now, you know when I say thorns, that is a metaphor for all of the trials that you go through. Joseph left Canaan with high hopes, despised by brethren, sold into slavery by his own kinsmen. But he arose in Potiphar's house, the captain of the Egyptian army. Then he was lied on, thrown into prison, interpreted 2 dreams, forgotten, stayed in jail, some say 7 to 10 years. His youth was seemingly passing him by. But he arose to the jail keeper's helper. His attitude toward trouble, the thorns, it was just incredible. Finally, he's released, rises to prime minister of Egypt, and in that position, he hurriedly stockpiles grain to prepare Egypt against a famine. Years have passed. Now Joseph's brethren stand before him, hungry, not recognizing. The years have been kind to Joseph. I can see Joseph pondering, how do I feel about these men who sold me? Once I'd been angry with them enough to fight them, possibly enough to kill them. No more. The pain's gone. Only pity remains, mercy. Because Joseph then saw the hand of God, that the thorns of jealousy, deceit, and isolation had worked a far greater good. Yes. Joseph revealed himself and said, what you meant for evil, God has turned for good. Don't be grieved. Don't be angry with yourself that you sold me hither. For you didn't just sell me, God sent me before you to preserve life. It was not you that sold me. It was God that sent me. Is that an attitude that we need to embrace, folks? That this thorn in my side is on my side, that the weight of the thorns is far outmeasured by the worth of the thorns. Oh, I could go biblically. I could talk about how Manasseh, there was a thorn in his jaw, a hook in his jaw, carried captive, and only then did he see the revelation. But back to Paul. Laying on a Damascus road, Jesus said, Paul, if I had to write your life story right now, all you've been doing, you may be bright, you may be of the tribe of Benjamin, the first royal tribe. You may be a Pharisee of Pharisees. You may have been educated by Gamaliel, the grandson of the great Rabbi Hillel. But Paul, when I look at your life right now, all I see is you kicking against thorns. You've just been kicking thorns all your life, Paul. Now I'm going to take you and I'm going to use you. Yes. Troubles, thorns can be blessings in disguise. I feel that what's in your side is on your side. You remember the children of Israel under Pharaoh, that groaning, the more the burdens, the more the people grew. What you have been going through, and that's the key word there, through. What you've been going through is making you into a person you could never be. What's in your side is on your side. When I'm weak, then am I strong. Yes. That trouble is not against you. It's for you. The most sublime use of thorns in the Bible, however, was when Roman soldiers plated thorns, placed it on the brow of Jesus as a mock crown. How could those soldiers know that those thorns were an emblem of sin, the curse of the earth? But Jesus wore his thorns as a crown. Yes, that's the worth of thorns. Is that what you're going through right now? You can wear it as a crown. That it will be more than likely, hear me carefully. CL, May, hear me carefully. When your life is all said and done, it won't be the achievements, it won't be the accomplishment that merits heaven's attention. It will be this. After all, we're just unprofitable servants. No. What gains heaven's attention is, can you weave your thorns into a crown? Yes. That captivates all of glory. All of glory. You remember Michelangelo's famous painting in the Sistine Chapel. The saints depicted up there are holding on to the things. One is holding onto an iron grate. Was that Bartholomew? Because it's thought that he was actually burned alive on an iron grate. One is holding to flayed skin. And they are holding on to the things that tried them and tested them. Standing in the heavenly place, what gains heaven's attention is, can you weave your thorns into a crown? Yes. It's how you process your crown. It's how you process that thorn, That which was meant for bad, but is working for good. That's the weight and the worth of thorns. And someday, nail-scarred hands will lift that crown of thorns from your brow, and that corruptible crown will be replaced with an incorruptible one. And here's my favorite verse in all of 2 Corinthians. It pretty much sums it up. It's in chapter 4. Paul said, here we go. Yolanda, Lonnie, here we go. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So, fellow believers, devotees, the thorns, I know they're weighty. I know they crush you. I know they pierce you. I know they hurt you. But that pain will turn to gain if you keep believing, keep trusting, keep praying, keep praising, keep processing those thorns. Don't let them get in your spirit. Be set free. God's doing something in you. Rod, Gayla, God's doing something in you and through you. Share this with others. Like the page. Subscribe to the page. Happy to have Tessie out of puppy dog jail again. Good to see you. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to Morning Devotion with Ken Gurley. Join us next time for another inspiring devotion. To support this ministry, please visit firstchurch.com/give.